What famous person did horrible things that people largely forgot about? Remember when a 16-year-old girl overdosed in Don Henley's house? He pled guilty to minor misdemeanor charges and then wrote a song about how mean the media was to him? Because I feel like almost no one does. Boy George abducted and tortured a man in 2007. Soulja Boy beat a pregnant woman into having a miscarriage. Floyd Mayweather beat the shit out of his former girlfriend, and got away with it because the judge allowed him to train for a fight he was headlining. Copied from article about the Peter Paul and Mary singer's assault on a 14-year-old girl. Peter Yarrow's 1981 pardon from President Jimmy Carter for taking indecent liberties with a child should have been a much bigger deal, but it was quickly overshadowed by the freeing of the American hostages in Iran just hours later. But now, decades later, a new Washington Post BSer revisits the controversial pardon of the folk singer, of Peter, Paul, and Mary fame, and reveals that Yarrow may have preyed upon other underage girls. Robert H. Richards IV. Richards, who's the heir to the DuPont family's estimated $14 billion, was arrested in 2009 for repeatedly sexually assaulting his 3-year-old daughter. The billionaire offered to take a polygraph test to clear his name, but he failed the exam and eventually confessed to the charges. He should have received a sentence of potentially 30 years in prison, but his lawyers were able to change the charge to 4th-degree rape, and he was given 8 years in prison. However, the court believed he wouldn't fare well in prison, so his sentence was suspended and he was freed on probation. Jack Nicholson beat a prostitute that he hired to the point of irreversible brain damage. Curtis Kurt Johnson. The billionaire whose family owned the household products company, S.C. Johnson, was arrested in March 2011 for molestation. Faced with a potential 40-year sentence for repeatedly assaulting his teenage stepdaughter, the businessman, who was worth an estimated $4.2 billion in 2019, only received 3 months in prison and a fine of $6,000. Alongside the short prison term and the fine that hardly made a dent in his fortune, Johnson also didn't have to register as a sex offender. Cheryl Cole beat the living daylights out of a toilet attendant. Jared Leto. Bro really raped and sexually assaulted underage girls, and so much people act like he's done nothing wrong. Not even any deal or movie drops. He's still consistently hired all around, and it's the dumbest shit in the world. Vince Neil only got 30 days and he killed somebody. Philip Burke, film industry executive, journalist, and film critic, sexually assaulted Brendan Fraser, and his defense was it was in jest, not sexual intent, which then he got off for it. Had any of us used that defense, we would have been buried under the jail. Alexander Graham Bell, yes, the telephone guy, campaigned for and eventually helped to outlaw sign language in both deaf and hearing schools, hoping to integrate schools with both deaf and hearing students. Instead, he ended up depriving deaf students who were not able to hear of language. The last of these laws banning sign in the US was finally repealed in 1979. Canada didn't finish ridding themselves of these laws until 2010. Salvador Dali found a thrill in torturing and killing living things, both animals and humans. He tried to kill his sister and one of his lovers. He tortured and killed animals. George Orwell wrote a scathing condemnation of our willingness to overlook what a horrible sociopath he was just so that he might paint us another pretty picture. A summary. The original article. John Travolta sexually assaulted several young men, and has seemingly faced no repercussions from this. What single trope can cause you to fully lose interest in a movie/show? I can't stand seeing specialists being cast as masters of multiple highly specialized skill sets or areas of study. I understand that it's a popular action movie trope, but you also see this in the medical and academic fields. The main character bakes muffins part-time 3 days a week but lives in a 2500 SQ Fort Loft penthouse, Indiana, the chic part of town. If I kill him, I'm no better than him. Mogerfucker, you just smoked 19 of his henchmen and put 5 more in a wheelchair for life, end his ass. And of course the bad guy gets let go, but decides at the last second to try to kill the good guy, justifying a bullet between the eyes, usually by either the good guy's sidekick, or the bad guy's henchman that he just got done betraying. The main character is about to get killed. The antagonist is sitting there pointing a gun at them, about to shoot them, but they first have to give a 30-second speech. This gives the love interest/forgotten sidekick/child with developing fighting skills to come kill the enemy instead. Follow it up with a quote from them saying, "You think I miss this party?" Being mildly impacted by lethal injuries. Likewise, when in sub-freezing temperatures, not succumbing to hypothermia when soaking wet. Not always enough to shut it off, but it always stands out and strains the illusion. Smart people making dumb decisions for drama. I have stopped watching several shows because of this. Resurrection and fake-out deaths. The ex-cop/FBI agent that comes out of retirement because the entire government can't catch a criminal. Will they, won't they? I liked watching New Girl, but when they completely restarted the main character's relationship I was like, oh, so it's going to be like that. Dear producers, please let your characters grow. They clumsy, nerdy, awkward girl who are normally played by the hottest actresses out there. Something that can be fixed right away with just a conversation. When a character is repeatedly hyped as being insanely intelligent, but then they just have a decent vocabulary and aren't particularly insightful or clever. If an entire conundrum can be solved by just someone waiting 1 minute for the other person to explain but chooses not to, irritates me to no end, and I'd much rather stop watching the movie. Fathers that are stupid/literally cannot parent for comedic value. The useless dad trope. When a character is killed and then soon after brought back to life. You just squandered so much storytelling potential and audience emotional engagement there. Superhero movies are so guilty of this. People who eat pizza with knife and fork, why? To slow me down. Typically I'd do it because I'm working at my PC and don't want to have to wipe my hands off every time I need to type something. One must always distinguish themselves from the peasants. Depends on the pizza. If it's thick and unwieldy, absolutely laden with toppings, I might reach for a fork. But if it's a standard slice, I'm picking it up. I want it right now, and if I bite into it when it's too hot, the cheese will slap itself onto my chin and I'll scream. I like my hands to avoid getting sticky and food up if I can. I don't like my hands getting greasy. That's the normal way of eating a traditional Italian pizza. Because using a spoon would be unpractical. Edit, geez, thanks for the English lesson. Anyway, unpractical is also accepted even if not commonly used. Ease it too, you know what? Fuck you all, bunch of ignorants who apparently aren't even able to look up a dictionary. I'm out.